Allied tanks were trapped by Normandy's deadly hedgerows until one mad mechanic changed everything. In just 48 hours, Sergeant Curtis Cullen turned a broken Sherman into a battlefield legend. This is the untold story of the invention that broke the stalemate, saved lives, and rewrote the rules of war. Normandy, June 1944. The greatest armada in history has landed on the beaches of France. Allied troops push inland, fighting for every hedgerow, every crossroads, every village. But the euphoria of D-Day is fading. The advance has stalled. The enemy is not just the German army, it's the land itself. The Norman countryside is a patchwork of small fields, each one surrounded by ancient hedgerows, thick, tangled walls of earth and roots, some 6 feet high and just as wide. For centuries, these hedgerows have marked property lines and sheltered livestock. Now, they are natural fortresses, perfect for defense. German machine gunners and anti-tank teams dig in behind them, invisible until the moment they strike. American tanks, so vital in the open deserts of North Africa, are suddenly trapped. Sherman after Sherman bogs down, or is ambushed as it tries to climb the hedgerows. The tanks expose their thin underbellies, and German Panzerfausts and 88mm guns make short work of them. The fields become killing grounds. The advance slows to a crawl. Morale drops. Commanders demand a solution, but none is in sight. In the chaos, a sergeant named Curtis Cullen watches and thinks. Cullen is a mechanic from New Jersey, a man with grease under his nails and a stubborn streak a mile wide. He's not an engineer, not a designer, not a man with medals or rank, but he knows tanks, and he knows desperation. One night, after another failed attack, Cullen sits on the hull of a broken Sherman, staring at the hedgerow that stopped it. He runs his hand over the battered steel, thinking about the problem. Cullen grabs a piece of chalk and sketches an idea on the side of the tank. Steel prongs welded to the front, sharp and strong enough to slice through roots and earth. He remembers the Czech hedgehogs, steel anti-tank obstacles the Germans left on the beaches. There's plenty of scrap metal lying around. They work through the night, scavenging metal, cutting and shaping it, welding it to the front of the Sherman. The next morning, they test the invention. The modified Sherman rumbles forward, its engine growling. The crew braces as the tank hits the hedgerow. Instead of climbing and exposing its belly, the Rhino's prongs dig in, tearing through the roots and earth. The tank pushes forward, bursting through the other side. The men cheer. For the first time in weeks, hope returns. Word spreads quickly. Officers come to see the Rhino in action. General Omar Bradley himself watches a demonstration and is convinced. Welders work around the clock, fitting the prongs to tanks all along the front. The effect is immediate. In the next attack, Sherman tanks fitted with Rhinos lead the way. They smash through the hedgerows, surprising the Germans and opening paths for infantry and other vehicles. Cullen's invention doesn't just break the deadlock in Normandy, it finds new uses as the war moves on. Tanks with Rhinos breach stone walls, clear snowdrifts, and even push enemy vehicles aside during the Battle of the Bulge. The simple, rugged design proves adaptable and reliable, a testament to the power of necessity and ingenuity. For his invention, Curtis Cullen is awarded the Legion of Merit and hailed as a genius. He returns home after the war, choosing a quiet life, letting his invention, and the men it saved, speak for itself. The story of the Rhino is more than a tale of metal and machines. It is the story of how one idea, born of desperation and built from scrap, changed the course of a battle, and perhaps the war itself. The Rhino's debut on the battlefield was nothing short of revolutionary. The plan called for a massive aerial bombardment, followed by a ground assault led by armored columns. As the dust settled from the bombing, the Rhino-fitted Shermans surged forward. Their steel prongs bit into the hedgerows, tearing through roots and earth, creating gaps wide enough for entire platoons to follow. German defenders, who had spent weeks perfecting their ambushes, were caught off guard. Machine gunners and anti-tank teams, expecting the tanks to climb and expose their bellies, suddenly found themselves face to face with American armor bursting through the wall in front of them. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Germans, unable to predict where the tanks would break through, scrambled to reposition their defenses. Their carefully laid fields of fire were rendered useless. The Allies, for the first time since D-Day, had the initiative. Infantry poured through the gaps, supported by tanks and artillery. The stalemate was broken, and the German line began to collapse. Cullen's invention spread like wildfire. Welders and mechanics up and down the front lines worked day and night, fitting Rhino cutters to every Sherman they could find. Some units improvised their own designs, using whatever scrap metal was available. The Rhino became a symbol of American ingenuity, a simple, rugged solution to a deadly problem. The impact went beyond Normandy. As the Allies advanced across France, the Rhino proved its worth again and again. In the hedgerow country, it was indispensable. In the cities and villages, it was used to breach stone walls and barricades. In the winter, it cleared snowdrifts and debris. During the Battle of the Bulge, Rhino-fitted Shermans pushed through roadblocks, cleared paths for supply convoys, and even shoved disabled enemy tanks out of the way. The Rhino's success was a testament to the power of frontline innovation. Cullen, a sergeant with no formal engineering training, had seen a problem and solved it with the tools and materials at hand. His invention was not the product of a laboratory or a design bureau, but of necessity and experience. It was a reminder that sometimes the best solutions come from those who know the problem best. The men who used the Rhino never forgot its impact. Tank crews spoke of the confidence it gave them, the sense of control in a landscape designed to kill. Infantrymen remembered the sight of Shermans bursting through hedgerows, clearing the way for the advance. Officers praised the Rhino for saving lives and speeding the liberation of France. Cullen himself remained humble. He accepted his medals and honors with quiet pride, but he never sought the spotlight. He knew that his invention had made a difference, but he also knew the cost. Every advance came at a price. Cullen carried the weight of those losses, even as he took satisfaction in the lives his invention had saved. The story of the Rhino spread after the war. Historians and military analysts studied its impact, noting how a simple idea had changed the course of a campaign. The Rhino became a case study in battlefield innovation, a lesson in the value of listening to those on the front lines. Military academies taught the story to new generations of officers, emphasizing the importance of adaptability and initiative. But for Cullen, the greatest reward was the knowledge that he had helped his fellow soldiers survive. He returned to New Jersey after the war, working as a mechanic and living a quiet life. When asked about the Rhino, he would simply say, "It was just something that needed doing." The legacy of the Rhino endures. In museums and memorials across the world, Sherman tanks fitted with hedgerow cutters stand as silent witnesses to Cullen's ingenuity. The Rhino is more than a piece of steel. It is a symbol of the power of one person to make a difference, even in the darkest of times. The mad mechanic from New Jersey proved that sometimes the greatest heroes are those who see a problem, pick up a torch, and get to work. As the Allies pushed deeper into France, the Rhino's reputation grew with every mile. Tank crews who had once dreaded the sight of another hedgerow now felt a surge of confidence. The prongs on their Shermans were battered and bent, but they worked. Again and again, the tanks punched through obstacles that had once seemed impenetrable. Infantrymen cheered as the Rhinos cleared the way, opening paths for men and machines alike. The Germans, caught off guard by the sudden mobility of American armor, scrambled to adapt. Their carefully prepared ambushes were outflanked, their strong points bypassed. Reports from the front described the shock and confusion among German defenders as tanks burst through hedgerows in unexpected places, shattering the illusion of safety behind the ancient walls. The psychological impact was as great as the tactical one. The Allies had found a way to turn the terrain itself into an advantage. The Rhino's versatility soon became apparent. In the chaos of the breakout from Normandy, tank crews used the cutters for more than just hedgerows. They smashed through stone walls, pushed aside wrecked vehicles, and even cleared barricades in the narrow streets of French towns. In the winter, the prongs helped Shermans plow through snowdrifts and debris during the Battle of the Bulge. Some crews even used the Rhino to push enemy tanks off the road, clearing the way for the advance. Stories of the Rhino's effectiveness spread quickly. In one village, a Sherman fitted with a Rhino led a column through a maze of barricades and rubble, reaching trapped infantry and turning the tide of the fight. In another, a tank crew used the prongs to breach a fortified wall, surprising a German machine gun nest and capturing the position with minimal losses. The Rhino became a symbol of American adaptability, a reminder that the best solutions are often the simplest. Curtis Cullen, meanwhile, watched his invention change the battlefield from afar. He received letters from tank crews thanking him for saving their lives. Officers praised his ingenuity in after-action reports. General Bradley himself credited the Rhino with breaking the stalemate in Normandy and opening the road to Paris. Cullen was awarded the Legion of Merit, one of the highest honors given to a non-commissioned officer, but Cullen remained humble. He knew that every innovation in war came at a cost. For every tank that broke through a hedgerow, there were men who didn't make it home. Cullen carried the weight of those losses, even as he took pride in the lives his invention had saved. He rarely spoke of his role, preferring to let the Rhino and the men who used it speak for themselves. The impact of the Rhino extended beyond the battlefield. Military planners took note of the importance of frontline innovation. The story of Cullen's invention became a case study in adaptability and initiative, taught in military academies and leadership courses for decades to come. The lesson was clear: listen to the men on the ground, trust their experience, and give them the tools they need to solve the problems they face. As the Allies advanced into Germany, the Rhino continued to prove its worth. In the final months of the war, Sherman tanks fitted with cutters led the way through the Siegfried Line, breaching dragon's teeth and barbed wire, clearing paths for infantry and engineers. The Rhino had started as a desperate improvisation, but it ended as a battlefield legend. After the war, many of the Rhino-fitted Shermans were scrapped or sold for surplus, but a few survived, preserved in museums and memorials as reminders of the ingenuity and determination that helped win the war. Veterans brought their families to see the tanks, telling stories of the battles they fought and the invention that made the difference. Curtis Cullen returned to civilian life, working as a mechanic and living quietly in New Jersey. He never sought fame or fortune, content to know that he had done his part. When asked about the Rhino, he would smile and say it was just something that needed doing. His humility became part of the legend, a reminder that sometimes the greatest heroes are those who work in the shadows, solving problems and saving lives without expecting recognition. The story of the mad mechanic who turned a broken tank into a battlefield legend is more than a tale of war. It is a story of creativity, courage, and the power of one person to change the course of history. The Rhino remains a symbol of what can be achieved when necessity meets ingenuity, and when ordinary people rise to meet extraordinary challenges. The war in Europe ended, but the story of the Rhino and Sergeant Curtis Cullen did not fade. In the years that followed, historians and veterans alike looked back on the Normandy campaign and recognized the pivotal role played by Cullen's invention. The hedgerow cutter was more than just a piece of steel welded to a tank. It was a symbol of the American spirit, practical, inventive, and unwilling to accept defeat. For the men who had fought in Normandy, the memory of the Rhino was vivid. Veterans told their children and grandchildren about the days when tanks were trapped by walls of earth and roots, and how a mechanic's idea changed everything. They remembered the relief of seeing a Sherman with prongs at the front, knowing it could break through where others had failed. For many, the Rhino was the difference between life and death. Curtis Cullen himself remained a quiet figure. He returned to his hometown, working as a mechanic and living a modest life. He rarely spoke of his wartime invention, preferring to let others tell the story. When he did talk about the Rhino, it was with humility and a sense of responsibility. He knew that every innovation in war came at a cost, and he never forgot the men who had not come home. The legacy of the Rhino lived on in unexpected ways. Military engineers studied Cullen's design, applying its lessons to future conflicts. The idea of adapting equipment on the fly, of listening to the men on the front lines, became a guiding principle for armies around the world. The Rhino was featured in documentaries, books, and museum exhibits, its story inspiring new generations to think creatively and act decisively. In Normandy, some of the old hedgerows still stand, silent witnesses to the battles fought there. In a few places, you can find Sherman tanks with Rhino cutters preserved as memorials. Tourists and history buffs visit these sites, tracing the path of the Allied advance and imagining the chaos and courage of those days. The Rhino, once a desperate improvisation, is now a symbol of victory and hope. The story of Sergeant Curtis Cullen and the Rhino is a reminder that history is shaped not just by generals and politicians, but by ordinary people who see a problem and refuse to give up. It is a story of how one man's idea, born of necessity and forged in the heat of battle, helped change the course of a war. As the years pass, the details of the Normandy campaign may fade, but the lesson of the Rhino endures. In every challenge, there is an opportunity for innovation. In every crisis, there is a chance for someone to step forward and make a difference. The mad mechanic from New Jersey proved that sometimes the greatest heroes are those who pick up a torch, roll up their sleeves, and get to work. Curtis Cullen's invention didn't just break through hedgerows, it broke through the barriers of doubt and fear, showing what's possible when determination meets ingenuity. The Rhino remains a legend, a testament to the power of one person's vision, and a reminder that even in the darkest times, hope can be welded from scrap. If you learned something new, hit like and subscribe for more hidden WWII stories. What do you think was the most underrated invention of WWII? Let us know in the comments. Share this video with a friend who loves military history.